Do Christians who commit suicide go to heaven? I only ask because there are a few well known Christians that believe they do. What are your thoughts? Um, I know a lady from my childhood who's the mother of a dear friend of mine from high school. He was a year or two older than me, and his mom had been through many uh, surgeries on her back and her neck to stop the pain, and nothing changed. Nothing ever got better. She continued to have more grievous pain for years and years and years. And at the end of things, she could not stand. She could. She the only way she had any relief at all if she was walking, actually walking in the motion of picking up her feet and putting her feet down. If she was sitting, if she was laying down, if she was trying to sleep, in grievous pain. Um, she hanged herself because of the pain. I believe that she went to heaven because, as Kennethan said, suicide is not the unforgivable sin. Um, Suicide is terrible. It is horrible to the families of the survivors of the family. Uh, Many times it starts a cycle of, if the parent commits suicide, often their children will commit suicide. And it begins a family cycle of making it acceptable to take your life when things are hard. I would never judge anyone who has, for whatever reason, taken their life. Uh, I would not condemn them from not being in heaven either. Um, it's it's tough, uh, but when Jesus said it's finished, all sin, on God's perspective, is forgiven. There's no thing, there's nothing left to do to bring forgiveness except for us to come into the family of God and receive that gift of eternal life and regeneration of the Spirit and be brought into that place of utter forgiveness. So if they are born again Christians, children of God, and they die, they go to heaven. However they die, in my opinion.
I agree. Let's see. Kat says, "I feel suicide in heaven is dependent on why." I think the reason why that statement is incorrect is because if someone believes in Jesus and just because what's the difference between putting a gun in your mouth or making the decision to have a doctor send you off like Dr. Kevorkian did?
Yeah.
It's the same thing. The intent of it is the same. You're taking you're taking your life and but ultimately what it boils down to is your faith in Jesus Christ. However, definitely don't do that at all. And I'm not saying that you are Wolf King, but there's some people that may come across this right now or 6 months from now or whatever, and we don't want that to come across at all. That is an option because God, if you are a Christian, God has a purpose for your life. It's not to end right now. There's a lady in our church that, she's in tremendous amount of pain, but guess what? When she goes to the hospital, she tells all the nurses and the doctors about Jesus Christ. So
Yep.
she's in some tremendous amount of pain, but guess what? She's still spreading the gospel, and we don't know if through these chats that she's having with these people that these nurses or doctor could come to know him. You never know.
Right.
But Ryan says, let's see, what's the point of putting a gun in your mouth? Not a good transition, considering we were just talking about the glorious. Well,
Empire.
you missed my paragraph.
Thing people forget is there's no promise without process. In reality, we soar. In reality, to soar, we need to be crushed. And the people God anoints the most, he crushes the most severely so they can soar in his name. I agree with that to a point, Kat, but there's a... And... Jesus, help me. The massive proclivity in the online chats that I'm part of, the discords that I'm part of, and you who know who I'm talking about. The number of young people who think it's just so bad death would be better is horrifying to me. Because you're teenagers or your early 20s or your late teens or whatever, at that age we don't have an idea about living and what God can do with us once we come through that pain. I've said it before. I've been there. I had the hammer back and the gun on the bed, and I was on my knees, and I said, God, I need a reason not to do this right now. I need a reason. I didn't have the gun in my hand. But it was right there. The hammer was back. I said, I need a reason not to do this. And the thing that changed everything was in my vision. I was standing on that end of an x-ray room, which is what I do for a living, and there was a lady sitting in a wheelchair here where I'm at with her hands folded across her lap, and she was covered with a sheet and her head was down. So I saw her from this position, the x-ray table right here. And Father said, this lady's going to need you to take care of her one day, because nobody will take care of her like you will. I went, okay. I dropped the hammer, put it back in the holster where it lived, and got up and I moved forward. We don't know who we're going to touch. We don't know what kind of impact we're going to have on somebody in the future. And the enemy of God and the enemy of God's plan and the enemy of life tries desperately to get us to help him hinder or at least slow down God's plans in other people's lives by making that such a viable option. And it's truly not an option. It's not an option. We have to decide every day to live. I'm going to woke up today and I'm like, I'm going to get out of bed, I'm going to have some breakfast, play with my cat, play with my dog, I'm going to work on the motorcycle, and I'm going to live today. I'm going to live today the very best I can. And I knew that it was coming here today. I got to go to the jail yesterday afternoon. That was a glorious time. Oh my goodness. Wow. What can God do with you if you will simply decide to live in His plan today. He blows me away every day. I mean, every time I get to go to jail, it absolutely amazes me when I get to go to jail. I come here, I sit down with y'all, and y'all come in here, and Wolf King says, "I got a question, got a heavy question," and everybody's chimed in. This thing that we're doing here is important, y'all. It's important because there may be people listening that aren't involved in the chat, but they're reading what y'all are writing down and they're listening, and it's going to make a difference in their life. That's incredible to me. Just blows my mind. It's an amazing thing, truly amazing thing. Wolf King, you said you were sorry for asking such a heavy question. Don't be sorry, sir. That is why we're here. You have a question and we can answer it. That's why we're here. Thank you. Great question. And I saw somebody mention the Catholic. Yeah, Catholics are the only Christians who believe suicide is unforgivable. I think that is correct. How much are you forgiven? When we ask for forgiveness, God forgives us for all of our sin. We are forgiven.